MK Ultra, Operation Mockingbird, Iran-Contra, Pelé. What do these four things all have in common? They're covert CIA operations. Now you may be thinking, random internet man, you're crazy. To which you'd be correct. But what if I told you that one particular American political figure really wanted to see Pelé play in his backyard? What if it became a vested interest of the United States government that the greatest football player in the world spark a revolution of passion for the world's game on our soil? Now what if I told you there's proof? Let's set the scene. The year is 1975. A new house costs you around $40,000. Parents all across the country were terrified of watching their kids jump into the ocean thanks to a release of Jaws. And the NASL, the North American Soccer League, was in its 7th year of existence as the country's most recent experiment into top-level professional soccer. And after a few initial bumps, the league was doing pretty well. The game of soccer as a whole, though, was still struggling to be taken seriously in America. For example, the New York Cosmos won the 1972 National Soccer League title in front of just 6,000 fans, many of whom only attended because they were able to get free tickets with the purchase of a double Whopper from Burger King. Former New York sports columnist and member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, Dick Young, even called soccer, quote, a game for commie pansies. We thank you for your kind support, Mr. Young. Now, I know what you're thinking. If only there was someone who could save us from this sort of sentiment. Someone who could push back against these evil anti-soccer ideas with just their resume alone. Someone with documented success as a celebrated cultural touchstone all across the globe. Well, lucky for us, there was one very influential individual who really wanted to see soccer grow stateside. Have you figured it out? Lock in your guess. Former United States Secretary of State and overall really bad dude, Henry Kissinger. Surprise! If you're a rational human being, the first thought that comes to mind is obviously, what the hell? And that's a perfectly rational response to have here. It's at this point where we'll stop to include our official really bad person disclaimer from Mr. Kissinger. There's no way to downplay it. What else is miraculously hard to downplay is how big of a soccer fan this guy was. Having been born in Fürth, a small town in southern Germany in 1923, Kissinger got to witness what the triumph of soccer means to a community at an early age, as local club Greuther Fürth won a handful of German championships in the late 20s. He played goalkeeper as a kid, until he broke a bone in his hand and made the switch to a modern-day internet tactical, claiming to have come up with game plans that preceded the Italian catenaccio. He carried this passion for the game with him throughout his life, wielding his passion for the game like only an American statesman would, for political gain. Kissinger was documented popping his head up in the soccer world everywhere. He was seen attending a Grimsby win at Blundell Park with UK Foreign Secretary Tony Crosland, appeared with military junta leader Jorge Videla in the Peruvian locker room during a group stage match at the 1978 World Cup, was heard to be discussing Garrincha style of play with Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev, and aided Joao Havelange to unseat Stanley Rous as FIFA president in 1974. Hell, Kissinger even wrote an article for Newsweek ahead of the 2006 World Cup, titled World of Wonder, in which he compared the world's passion for local club soccer teams to that of the raging water at Niagara Falls. Cinema. It should come then as no surprise that when Clive Toye, owner of the aforementioned New York Cosmos, called up the Secretary of State with an idea that would propel American soccer into the global spotlight, well, that things quickly ascended into the highest levels of national concern. Enter Edson Arantes Nascimento, or as declassified CIA documents say, PEH-LAY. 3-time World Cup winner with Brazil, scorer of over 1,000 career top-flight goals, and star in the smash hit film, Hot Shot. That last one might be a little subjective. Regardless, Pelé is globally recognized as the greatest soccer player of all time. His combination of elegance and intelligence was so far ahead of his competitors that people wouldn't have blinked twice if you told them Pelé was sent from the future. In 1975, however, Pelé was in the process of ramping down his career. He just finished his 19th and final season with Santos and was 8 months removed from a competitive fixture. So, as Clive Toye was finding out, bringing the king of football on board a struggling NASL franchise was not going to be a walk in the park. Toye spent the better part of a half a decade on a goose chase all over the world in search of the Brazilian superstar, racking up 30,000 airline miles and over $8,000 in phone bills a month. See, not only was soccer in America not that much of an attractive pull at the time, Pelé himself was officially deemed an unexportable national treasure by the Brazilian government. With rumors swirling that Pelé had offers to play in Italy and Spain, Toy sent one last Hail Mary. If you go to Europe, you can win another championship. If you come to America, you can win an entire country over. The proposition was enticing, but the issue of getting Pelé out of Brazil still loomed large. Fortunately, our friendly neighborhood war criminal was ready to spring into action. After receiving communication from Toy about the situation with Pelé, Henry Kissinger decides, fuck it, I'll handle this. To which, I'm paraphrasing of course. But according to Pelé himself, Kissinger traveled to Sao Paulo and met with the soccer legend at a local cafe. There, Kissinger was as forward as ever. Listen, you know I'm from the United States, and I'm in politics there. Soccer is coming along there. They're playing it in the schools. Would you like to help us promote soccer in the United States? To which Pelé, verbatim, responded, my God. And well, as it usually does, the American political fanfare worked. Pelé agreed to join the Cosmos, signing a 3-year deal that would see him earn just under $5 million. That's approximately $30 million in today's money. At this point, you're probably thinking, cool, but where's this conspiracy of interest from the government at large? Well, it's here. What? In a declassified CIA memo, sent from one Mr. Henry Kissinger to the office of President Gerald Ford ahead of a White House visit from Brazil's now exported national treasure. This wasn't the first time Pelé was visiting the White House. Just 2 years earlier, Pelé visited then-President Richard Nixon, where the president famously asked Pelé if he spoke Spanish. The declassified document ahead of the Ford meeting is just 13 pages long, mostly comprising of rewrites of notes ahead of the meeting. But we can clearly see at the top, the document calls out Pelé, the Brazilian soccer star, and labels the purpose of the meeting as, to meet one of the world's foremost athletes and express your appreciation and support for his participation in the North American Soccer League. The meeting was set to be a quick 10 minutes, with Clive Toye, 2 members from the NASL franchise, the Washington Diplomats, and Kissinger himself all in attendance. Hilariously enough, Pelé's name was literally dictated as PEH-LAY, and an early draft of the memo spells out the Portuguese pronunciation of football as futebol, gracefully redeeming ourselves from the early Nixon meeting. The most interesting part of the memo, without a doubt, are the included talking points. 7 in total. They range from simply wishing Pelé and his family well, to couching his employment with the Cosmos in a geopolitical context, optimistically thinking that relations between Brazil and the US would benefit. Talking points 2 and 3 are the clearest in understanding any goals the government may have had though, as they read, your presence will do a great deal to stimulate professional soccer, as well as the general interest in the sport here in this country. And we are among the less developed countries in the sport and can use a little technical assistance. Your presence will help us. Now, in the context of government documents, if this isn't screaming, we need to grow soccer, then I don't know what is. It does beg the question, why? Why push for this? The country had plenty of sports that were doing well, and that weren't labeled as a game for commie pansies. Well, if we closer analyze talking point 6, I think we'll find an answer that hits too close to home. It reads, soccer is a great game to play, as well as to watch. It doesn't require size or a lot of equipment to play. It's easy to learn, and since the object isn't to hide the ball, as in our football, it's easy to follow for the spectator. It doesn't have all those pauses in action either. Here, it's important to remember that this memo was drafted by Henry Kissinger. Not Henry Kissinger, Secretary of State, committer of war crimes, but Henry Kissinger, the little boy from Germany, diehard fan of Greuther Fürth. He's desperately trying to convince others that the sport he loves, the sport that brings him back to his childhood, is legitimate and worthwhile. Pelé doesn't need to be convinced of these things, but everyone at the White House probably does. And most people in the country at the time did. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I resonate with Kissinger here. Growing up when soccer wasn't as popular as it is now, I remember being called a grass fairy and having to prove each and every day at recess that soccer players were just as awesome as anyone else. I fought that same battle. The sad part about the meeting, Kissinger missed it. Someone else was written in at the last minute. Brent Scowcroft, who held numerous military and intelligence officer positions during his career, stepped in for the MIA Kissinger. Destabilizing entire regions takes precedent over meeting your heroes, I suppose. Realistically, was it a top priority for the American government to grow the game of soccer through Pelé? Probably not. What is certain, though, is that it's hard to talk about the growth of soccer in the States without mentioning Pelé's placement on the timeline. Initially, the impact of his time with the Cosmos was immediately obvious. Pelé himself was confident of such. At his signing announcement, he proclaimed, quote, "Now you can say to the world, soccer has finally arrived in the United States." On the field, success for the sport was easy to see. Attendance numbers soared, with the Cosmos boasting fans in excess of 40,000 at 65 matches, with none being bigger than their 8-3 playoff win over Fort Lauderdale, where a record 77,000 fans turned up. Soon after Pelé's arrival, stars from all over the globe flocked to the NASL too. Franz Beckenbauer, Gerd Müller, George Best, Giorgio Chinaglia, Johan Cruyff, Teófilo Cubillas, and Eusebio all lit the NASL on fire. Off the field, the league became a who's who of social capital, where Cosmos road trips became a thing of lore. Donning comparisons to Rolling Stones tours, Mr. Rolling Stone himself, Mick Jagger, even said, "Partying with Pelé is the ultimate badge of honor." Their posse was enough to make a Hollywood nightclub owner jealous, as Barbra Streisand, Robert Redford, Elton John, Peter Frampton, and Rod Stewart were all spotted with the Galacticos from New York. There was no bigger fan, though, than soccer groupie number one, Henry Kissinger. All that glitters isn't always gold, however, and after Pelé called it quits after the 1977 season, the league fell off a cliff. No one was able to replace Pelé's magical boots, and the NASL subsequently folded just 6 years later, leaving a vacuum of top-tier outdoor professional soccer until the MLS would emerge in 1996. Shout out to the major indoor soccer league, though. That's a whole nother story. And that brings us to the end. Does the current iteration of soccer in America have the government to thank for Pelé's recruitment to the NASL? Does it have Henry Kissinger to thank? Or was the documented soccer fan acting as any soccer fan at the time would, and just trying to angle for some hangout time with the king? We'll leave it to you. If you made it this far, I'd like to congratulate you on making it here. I bestow upon you the honor of Soccer Sicko. We're hardly professional researchers, but our sources can all be found below. We've got plans to make plenty more of these this year. So if you have a crazy American soccer story, just drop it in the comments.